Hey guys, Youngblood with you, and what I wanted to do today was actually show off the star map just a little bit and take you on a brief tour of a couple different systems that we've actually seen and just show off some cool things. Going forward, I might actually dig in on this a little bit more, and I don't think it's necessarily going to be like a whole lore series or anything like that, but I think what it'll probably end up turning into is maybe talking about trade routes and just points of interest and those types of things. So if you have interest in the star map and different systems and that kind of information, let me know and we can kind of get into that. But with that in mind, let's go ahead and start. I'm going to take us on a brief little journey across the universe. Now, with that in mind, you're seeing all these different little indicators, and if you haven't actually played around in the star map, you can see you've got these legends down here. Basically, this little indicators for the UEE. This is obviously Vandal. It's orange and hostile. Anywhere that you actually see this green icon, that's going to be the Xi'an, so you can see them over here. Wherever you get this little guy is unclaimed, so there's some of those kind of sporadically strewn about, and you can see this is actually three-dimensional, so it's not as simple as just hovering over, though the 2D map does help, which you can change over here. But without playing around with that too much, and I'll cover things like jump tunnels and that kind of stuff later, let's go ahead and start off in the Tiber system. Now, for those of you that haven't really kept up in the lore or kind of been reading stuff as it's come out, the Tiber is kind of a Vandal hotspot. You know, the military has kind of deemed this place to be called the Grinder because it's just constant battles that are going on in this location. We've got, where it's Vandal claimed area, you can even see up here it's military classified. And within this, there's a couple planets here that I think are at least interesting and worth talking about, one of them being here on Tiber 1. And Tiber 1's actually being harvested by the Vandal. They're basically just sloughing the planet. They're coming up and just mining molten ore to create their ships. So if there's kind of a foundry of the Vandal war machine, we're probably talking about Tiber 1 here. Now past that, we can scroll out a little bit, we get Tiber 2. And Tiber 2 is one of the more interesting planets, at least in my mind. You can see it's a dry desert world, but basically what it is we've kind of heard these stories about massive battles taking place here, and there's wreckage all over the planet. You know, the UEE is bombing this place like crazy. From that, we get this, just wild stuff going on, and I think it's interesting because it's going to be one of the most dangerous places in the universe, but for really bold salvage crews, you could go to Tiber 2, hopefully have some good protection, and maybe really salvage some good stuff, maybe even including some Vandal scythes if you want to sell those for a high profit after repairing them back in UEE space. Just know, this is not going to be an easy place to visit. It's not a friendly environment. But this is Tiber 2, and you can see on the map, you get various other things like an asteroid belt, and some of them actually have more information. This one doesn't. And then you also have these different points. You've got these jump points that actually show you how you can travel across the universe. So with that, we're going to go ahead and take our first jump over to the Virgil system. Pretty. Alright, now on the Virgil system, there's not a whole lot here I actually want to talk about. We're just kind of doing this as a stopping point because we are going to be heading over to the Vega system. Alright, so here on Vega, the Vega system is one that we've been reading about recently, at least again if you've been staying up with the transmissions that have come from CIG, kind of leading up to the Squadron 42 release. So if we're talking about Squadron 42 and where that's actually going to probably start or at least play a pretty big part as far as the campaign, I would assume Vega is going to be one of those. Vega's kind of on the outlier of the, of UEE space. Again, I'm kind of zooming out here for you. You can see the close proximity to Vandal areas, and that's obviously going to make this a dangerous place to kind of hang out. Now, in Vega, we've got several different planets that we can talk about. Over here, we've got Selene, which is going to be the highest population planet that actually is in this system. It's populous. It's it's supposed to be a pretty city. It's economical. It's industrial. This whole place has a lot going on for it, and it just seems like it's one of those kind of up and coming or potentially up and coming systems. But the big problem is the Vandal that are coming in, and you can see here on Aramis, we actually have our first Vandal attack, and this is the place where we got the information about the attack, where the UEE actually came in and tried to defend and try and really protect, and they ended up fighting off the Vandal raid that came in. It's a very Earth-like planet. It's labeled as terrestrial rocky, which Earth actually has the same designation. But, you know, this is the one where we get the stories of, like, auroras crashing out of the sky into the streets and people getting stabbed and kind of that craziness. And I think this is going to be a very big, you know, interesting place where we're actually going to have a lot of combat. I think this is going to be a very kind of hotbed in the persistent universe. I think you're going to have a nice, interesting mix here. You know, this could probably be a good trade area for making a high profit, but you're going to need a lot of escorts here to kind of help you out. So with that, this is Vega. We're going to go ahead and take a little journey now, and I'm going to show you how to actually use the routes. You've got these different things that you can use down here. I got to clear out my previous selections here. So we are in Vega, so we're starting... stupid thing. So we're starting in Vega, and we're going to Seoul. So once you put that in, you can then choose your ship size, because we know different ship sizes aren't going to fit through certain points. So I keep this on small, just to make sure that we're doing the quickest journey here. Calculate the route, and you can see it gives you two different options. And generally what it does is I think it gives you the lowest number of jumps and the lowest number of distance. Here in this situation, they both happen to be the same, so we're just going ahead and pop this first route. Once you do that, you get this little indicator showing you what jump points you actually need to take, and we're going to go ahead and skip through them. One jump. Scroll out, look for the orange arrow, follow the moving arrows, and we're heading to Seoul. Now, for those of you that don't know, hopefully you're starting to recognize this. Seoul is our home system, the one that we are all currently residing in. Seoul is our sun. But within that, you can see we've got all of the different things in our, you know, in our little galaxy or in our little solar system here. And actually, within that, we've got Pluto. And one thing that's interesting about Pluto, getting a little carried away with the clicks. Oh, come on. Pluto. It's now labeled as a planet again, so good for Pluto. Pluto got himself a little promotion. I know he's been in the news and kind of a hot button topic, but Pluto is there. Past that, we've got all the familiar sites. You know, one place that we probably all need to consider stopping by is our home planet, and you know, within this, it actually shows all the different landing zones that are actually going to be available. So you know, we can head over to Moscow. You know, where you can find anything as it's labeled. You know, you can choose from New York, which is supposed to have a old world and new world architecture, which I'm kind of excited to see. But bottom line is that, you know, you're going to be able to kind of see some of these things that may be a kind of an interesting look at what, you know, the world could look like in the future. Now, over on Mars, we obviously get the kind of the first terraformed planet that we've had. You know, the UEE kind of has a nice presence here on Mars, even though there was some tragedy as far as, you know, the terraforming that happened there. And then another thing I just want to point out, because it's kind of interesting to see. I think I picked Saturn on accident. Let's go back in. Where's the big boy? Jupiter. Here we go. And then the other things that we get are things like this. We get our space stations, and these are like the ones that we've seen, you know, like in the multi-crew demo and all that kind of stuff. This one's no longer active, but you can see this familiar shape. You know, we saw this type of design, excuse me, in concept art early on, and it's good to see that they're kind of sticking with what they actually had planned. But these are kind of strewn about the galaxy in different places that you can actually check out. Now from here, I want to show you one more system before we kind of wrap up this first look, and that's going to be, well, let's go ahead and put in, this thing drives me crazy. We're in Seoul. I don't think it's going to matter. I'm going to click that out. See? Huh? And we're going to head over to Stanton. And you may be sitting here saying, why are we going to Stanton? Well, the reason we're going to Stanton will be apparent in just a moment. One jump. Follow the arrows. Heading over to Pyro. Pretty cool name for a system. And then we're taking the last jump to Stanton. So now that we're in Stanton, the reason I wanted to show this off was for a couple of purposes. The first one is because ArcCorp is here. And I think from what we're actually playing, what we have available to do, and especially with the social module and all the different things that we're starting to see implemented in the game, we have ArcCorp. And this is the planet that we're actually hanging out on. And within that, we've got this area 18, which is where we've been walking around, seeing all the different stores. it's talking about it's like kind of a hub of transport and commerce. And you can actually see in here that it's supposed to be really noisy, and it can be overwhelming for those that aren't, familiar with that type of environment. One of the other things that I wanted to point out here, just because I think it's really cool, is here on this planet, Crusader. And, this is the planet where we're talking about. It's a low-mass gas giant that features a breathable atmosphere at high altitudes, which is really cool. You don't think about that sort of thing when we're talking about gas giants. But from that, we have an ideal situation for a ship manufacturer, Crusader, who now occupies the planet's floating platforms to build the massive ships like the Starliner. We've seen the Starliner, and I kind of, after I read this, I was thinking to myself, especially with all the, Star Wars, trailers and information that's been popping out, it feels a little bit like some of the floating cities that we've seen there, and you can almost envision yourself flying through, in kind of just in the clouds and seeing these platforms, and I think it's going to be a really cool place to see. I don't envision this being a real, I don't know, like residential area, but just it's going to be a cool area, especially seeing some massive ships actually being constructed while being on these floating platforms on this gas giant. You can see that we've got different things scattered around. Another interesting one here is the cartographer station. Or cartography center. It's the scan hub off of Stanton, and it's just kind of another place that it's just the types of things that they're implementing into the game that are actually going to be supporting how we play the game. So explorers that are going out and finding information, these are going to be places where you can kind of give that information or turn it in. It's just kind of an idea of showing you what is coming and the types of things that we've got available. And then lastly, crud. I can't remember where I found it. So I'm going to go ahead and just say that's that's pretty much it. So sorry for the anticlimactic ending. I'm thinking what I'm going to do with this is probably start talking about potential trade routes. But what do you guys want to see from this? Is this something that you're interested in, that you want me to kind of keep doing and giving you a little bit more rundown on potential situations? Or do you just want to do some exploring on your own? Either is fine, but I encourage you to come check this out, because kind of being able to interact with the galaxy and the universe that we're going to be playing in is kind of exciting. It's interesting to see how it's all going to play out, and we're starting to get more information. And there's not a ton of information on this right now, but it's something that's going to develop as the game continues to develop. So it's going to be at least a little bit important for you to keep an eye on. So that's it for now. Let me know if you have any questions and put them in the comments. Have yourselves a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you guys later. Take care.